And it has influenced my process in a lot of ways, because I'm constantly pushing my students never to make work like mine, but to be curious with the same level of intensity that I can be curious about my materials and processes. So I see them discover things, and that really is exciting for me to witness. So I think it's more of this kind of synergy that happens in the classroom, and it kind of feeds my continual need to like be excited about the learning process. So, and then with this most recent show in LA, a lot of the forms are made out of hydrostone, which is a plaster cement hybrid, and it's a very generic, plaster is such a generic art material. I mean, if you've ever taken a sculpture class, you probably carved a block of plaster. Mm-hmm. And I have my students carve blocks of plaster, and it's not a material that I particularly love. I mean, I do love the kind of pristine, the white, the blank slate, but it's not an easy material to work with. You know, people use it, I think, mostly because it's cheap. But I kind of rediscovered a love of working with it, and that came directly from making my students work with it. So I make my students do this one project where they're casting plaster, and they have to cast the same or similar objects 100 times, and everyone groans about it. Wow. And I know that it's a challenging project, and so I thought, you know, why don't I should do the project myself, and I did, and I found it to be as challenging as I thought the project was, but in the process I kind of fell in a love with the material again. I kind of gained a new appreciation for plaster, and that's how these current pieces were born. It was kind of making myself do what I asked my students to do, and then kind of stumbling onto this new way of working with the material. I forget what the rest of the question was.
Don't worry. I think we've got a lot of material here to work with. And just lastly, one last question about, can you name a few artists, living or not, whose work has inspired you or influences your practice or that you admire?
Yes. In fact, right before you called, I made my list. So I would say that one of my biggest heroines is Eva Hess. Yeah. She was a huge influence on my work, and I think in my mind she's sort of the perfect balance between organic forms and more geometric or angular forms. One of the pieces that spoke so loudly to me was her. It's shameful, I don't remember the name of it. It's the cube, it's the big cube with the wires that are woven through this metal mesh. And
Accession.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
And I was so intrigued by that form, that it's the basic cube. It's how much more basic geometry can you get? And then you have this wonderful organic texture that happens on it and in it, and yet that organic texture is made from this very utilitarian material. So that really struck